We live? Thank you. We'll call this joint conference committee meeting together and see if we can work on House Bill 33. House Bill 33 was the CTE grant bill. When it left the House, it went to the Senate. There were some changes made to it. There was a provision on page 2 to have a matching funds, and that was stripped out in the Senate. And then also the issue is that the money must be spent on page 4 first before it can be awarded again. And Senator Hicks and I have just been discussing it along with Representative Lawley, and we're going to bring you up to speed with our Senator Ellis. And what we'd like to do is be able to have that set up so that small districts especially can use that money and be able to save it. That's our biggest concern in the House. That money that comes in needs to be able to be put together in a pot so that they can save enough money to be able to buy big equipment. And as it reads right now, they cannot.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, under the block grant, can't they do that already and start saving under their CTE block grant money, save that, and that's counted as a CTE expenditure, so that over the years they can use their CTE dollars and then save it? And so once they've done that, then they can demonstrate that they've spent 100% of their CTE funds, including the saving of it, and then be eligible to apply. That's my understanding of how it should work right now.
And Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And but I don't know that it's clear the way we've worded that. And so I think we may, because it says you have to expend that. And I think it would preclude the ability for a district that saved that from one year to the next. So I think it's just a matter of clarifying that whether you expended it or you've saved that funds for an expenditure specifically for CT&E. And I think that was not something that we contemplated in the Senate. What we don't want to do, particularly for these really small districts, that their CTE allocation may not be a very big component of the block grant model. It may take 1 or 2 years or even maybe 3 years that they actually save that. So what we're trying to do is look at, say, how do we keep the intent of the Senate, which was have to expend it, but also include that provision that says that if you needed to save it and it was specifically allocated for CTE for 1 or 2 years, that would still qualify. Does that make sense, Senator Ellis?
It does, Mr. Chairman, but that's where I think the words "or will expend."
Or will expend.
That's the saving idea that was in there. So it's in there already, I think. Mr. Chairman, page 4, line 1, will be given to the district unless, and this is how the Senate language says, shall be given to a district unless it has expended or will expend.
Or will.
So that's the saving concept already baked in there.
And I don't disagree with that, but I think it may be, maybe we just need to provide just a little more clarity on that. What's your thoughts on that, Senator?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's there, so I don't know what else to say.
Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Lawley.
Well, I do think it might need to be tightened up a little bit because, again, that will expend. I don't know, again, if someone could put a time limit on that, like, is that you will expend it in the next year? And then I think we want to be clear that some districts that only get small allocations may have to save for several years. And I'd like it to be clear that a little bit tighter, I think, so that in the process of applying for these grants, someone isn't immediately, they say, well, you for years, you haven't really, and you keep saying you're going to spend it. So I'd like to see it tightened.
Mr. Chairman, I'd say, looking at the legislation and where we are, it's the last day. The bottom of page 4, line 21 and 22 says E, the Department of Education shall promulgate rules necessary to carry out the section. As the department does this, the process is they'll draft rules. It goes out for public comment, and as long as it hasn't changed substantially, then eventually the legislature gets to look at that. It will go to joint education. All members of joint education will get a copy of the promulgation process. And so if that isn't clearly done, you can write a letter and say, wait a minute, we don't think the department got it right. This is what's our intent. And I haven't seen it actually successfully stopped. I've tried once where I thought the department's rule promulgation it was actually twice, in line with what we passed statutorily. Both times, the management council refused to put a halt and even look at it. So that's a concern. But the process is there for us to look at this and allow the department to flesh that out through their rulemaking. So I think it's there. I think the department knows our intent. There is a process in place if we disagree, members disagree that they didn't get it right. So I just think the language is fine.
I just agree. I think it needs to be clarified, but if do we want to take any public comment? We'll open it up to public comment if anybody would like to comment. They're both shaking their heads.
Chairman?
Go ahead, Senator Ellis.
I think the concern that we've seen though is for years, the CTE funding statewide average is around the 60-65% mark. So the problem that dollars haven't been allocated towards CTE has been one for years in the making. If this bill, were to pass, I think the expectation would be like we would start seeing districts committing the resources that they have in their block grant model toward CTE, saving it in account, and then over time they could demonstrate to the department through this program, hey, we've been saving, this is the last little bit that gets us across the finish line to purchase that major equipment item. But I don't know that this gets online right away because, again, this has been an area that's been starved for years. So we did look at options in the interim, taking out CTE dollars and making them outside the block grant model, which is actually something I would prefer. But this was a compromise. This is not my favorite approach. So the notion, though, that we're going to somehow start fixing the lack of funding for CTE that's been occurring for the last 5 or 6 years immediately, I don't know that I think we need to start seeing some dramatic shifts in how our school districts really invest in their CTE programs. And then if this comes online to supplement that, once they've made that demonstration, to me, that makes sense. So I like the language as it is. I think these sideboards that we worked on in the Senate provide more assurance for me to be comfortable with this bill. I was not comfortable with this bill as it moved through the interim in the prior form. This at least gets me to support the bill.
I'm going to make a suggestion because we don't have, while we have a quorum here, we don't have all members of the Senate here. I would like the chairman, Scott, to have, we'd like to consult with him on that. And I don't know who your other member is, but.
Landon Brown, Representative Brown.
So what I would like to do is Mr. Chairman, is maybe reschedule this for later today and give us an opportunity to go visit with Chairman Scott. And then have a chance to, you guys visit with the Representative Landon, and then hopefully we can get this thing resolved. If we want to schedule something for, say, 1:30 or sometime today, and reschedule this meeting and try to get this. I think we'll get to a resolution on this, because I think basically what you guys are saying and what we're saying is the same. We just didn't agree on the language.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to add, or just question, since I'm showing up a little bit late, and I apologize, I don't think I realized that this had been scheduled. Are we okay with deleting the matching fund requirement? Or is that,
yes,
were you guys comfortable with that amendment? Thank you.
We're good with that.
That works.
That works. Let's reschedule this for 1:30. Let's put that down hard and,
Yep.
and say 1:30 we'll be back to.
Lily? All right.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're adjourned.
Yeah,
So 1:30.
Well,
Thank you, Senator Ellis.
Yeah, I think what I'll take back up and get Charlie's input, but I think if we went in there and say, shall be given to